Hi guys, my name is Bethany Atazadeh and I'm excited to talk to you today about outlining. For me, outlining really boils down to two things. First, gathering info or brainstorming, and second, organizing that information. Now, I love organizing. It's actually really fun for me. That part's not as hard, although I will talk about it. The hard part for me is the brainstorming. I feel like it's just so open-ended that I don't know where to start, so I'll often just sit there feeling overwhelmed. Are you with me? Am I the only one? Okay. So before I even go into how I organize it, let's talk about how I brainstorm, because I've come across some really cool ideas that just give me direction and make the brainstorming process so much more fun. I feel like if you at least know where you're trying to go with brainstorming, you don't waste nearly as much time. Every story seems to have 5 essential elements to it. If you know what these elements are, you can focus your brainstorming around them, and you might find that not only do you know what you should add, but you know what you shouldn't add. Okay, let's jump right in. The first thing is actually 2 things combined. It's the theme of the story and the inciting incident. These do go hand in hand and they work together. The theme is essentially the question that you're bringing up in the beginning that you're going to answer at the end of the story. I know, it sounds a little weird, but stay with me. I'm going to give you some examples, and I'm going to use Disney because we all love Disney and hopefully we've all seen it, so there won't be any spoilers. Okay, so let's start with my absolute favorite Disney movie, Beauty and the Beast. In Beauty and the Beast, the question or the theme is introduced right at the beginning of the story. As they're introducing it in their Disney narrator voice, they say, "Who could ever learn to love a beast?" That's your theme. In The Lion King, Scar says something to Simba that leads him to believe throughout the movie that if it weren't for him, his father would still be alive. And last but not least, Tarzan. Somewhere right in the beginning of the movie, as he's growing up, we discover that he has a strong need for acceptance. The exciting incident is that thing or event, something that takes place that derails the character's life and forces them to go along a different path. So basically, if the inciting incident was removed, there wouldn't be a story. It's hard for me to nail down inciting incidents in my own work until I try to remove it. So for example, in Beauty and the Beast, it's the creation of the beast, because if there wasn't a beast, then the question or the theme, who could ever learn to love a beast, wouldn't matter. In The Lion King, it's the father's death, because if the father didn't die, Simba would never wonder if it was his fault. And in Tarzan, if his parents hadn't been killed, leaving him to think he was abandoned, he would never have this quest for acceptance. So as you can see, the theme and the inciting incident go hand in hand. Often, one of the side characters will actually express the theme in a question to the main character somewhere in the beginning. Once you know your theme and your inciting incident, you will know exactly where to begin your story. Now, most of us writers, when we first begin, we make all the same mistakes. We want to write backstory and set it up a little bit, but that is a mistake. You need to jump right into the story right when that inciting incident is happening. That's your beginning. You can set it up as you go. I'm guilty of this. I had to delete a whole first chapter because the truth is you can set the scene as you go. Readers want to get right into the action. That leads us to number 2, which I like to call the deciding moment. Whatever your big life-changing event is, your character is going to come up to a moment where they have to decide what they're going to do. Sometimes it's drawn out and we honestly don't know what they're going to pick. A lot of times we do know what they're going to pick, but we still want to experience the tension of that moment with the character. It's realistic to show them struggling with a decision. Make sure not to drag it out too long, though. You don't want your reader to get bored. And that leads us to number 3, which is the new world. You'll notice that whether your character actually goes somewhere new or not, they're going to be thrust into this new experience where they're suddenly exploring a new situation, a new job, a new location, a new relationship. So for Beauty and the Beast, Belle is suddenly in a castle with a lot of magical furniture, and that is a huge difference from the town that she grew up in. Simba in The Lion King goes across the desert into a jungle and starts eating bugs. Tarzan doesn't actually leave his world, but you'll notice that a new world comes to him with the humans that he's never met before. A cool thing to note here is that up until this moment, things have probably been pretty intense because there's been conflict going on. But when you get to the new world moment and the characters exploring and learning, you get to lighten it up a little bit and have some fun. Another side note is that this is where a lot of subplots will start developing. I think in some ways subplots take the pressure off of the main plot, which can start to feel really intense, and they can give the reader something else to focus on for a little bit. But the best subplots are ones that actually support the main plot. For example, as Simba's eating bugs, which is gross, you're actually seeing just how different of a world he is in compared to the one that he grew up in. As Tarzan is falling in love with Jane, it's a really cute little romantic story, but you'll notice that it's also still about the main plot, which is his need for acceptance. So this leads to number 4, which I've heard described as the all is lost moment. I first read this in Blake Snyder's book, Save the Cat, which I highly, highly recommend to all writers. It's a book on screenwriting, but his comments and suggestions on storytelling are 100% applicable to writing a novel. So if you study stories, you're going to notice that the all is lost moment comes in so many different shapes and forms, but it's almost always there in a good story. The best way I could describe it is when life almost is starting to be too good to be true for the character, and then suddenly something comes in and changes that. They run into a problem that is so desperate and so extreme that it brings about a all is lost feeling in the character. So let's use our Disney movies for an example. Belle is basically in love with the Beast. She just hasn't said it yet. And we're all thinking, oh my goodness, the fairy tale ending has arrived, when suddenly her dad needs help and she is gone. She is out of there and the Beast doesn't think she's coming back. In The Lion King, you'll see Nala find Simba, and it's this wonderful, cutesy, romantic time when he rediscovers his best friend and thinks he kind of likes her, and then she asks him to come back home, and he can't do that, and it just seems this horrible, all is lost moment for him. And in Tarzan, he's finally feeling accepted, and he's basically in love with Jane, and he wants her to stay with him, but she says no, she's leaving. Shoot. Another side note here, I've noticed that Disney does this really cool thing where they throw in 2 all is lost moments. In Beauty and the Beast, Belle comes back, but then the Beast is shot and he's gonna die. Or when Simba does go back to his pack or herd or whatever that thing is called, he, at the last moment, hears from Scar that Scar is the one who killed his father. And he's on the edge of a cliff, if I remember correctly. And in Tarzan, it doesn't even get better before it gets worse. It just keeps getting worse because suddenly they're capturing all his ape friends. Okay, number 5. This one's pretty obvious, but it's also very important. It is your ending. But what is the ending? The best kind of ending is one that actually answers the question that you brought up in your beginning theme. It's the resolution to what the reader's been wondering. So in Beauty and the Beast, who could ever learn to love a beast? Belle can, and she did. Or you have The Lion King, where Simba is convinced that he killed his father, but in the end he finds out that he didn't. It wasn't him. And in Tarzan, not only is he accepted by his ape family, but he's also accepted by some wonderful humans. Now you'll notice that the best stories, the ones that make us so happy, draw a really fine line in the sand here. They give you just enough of that happy ending and a glimpse of what life is like after the question is resolved, but they don't give you much. Once your question is answered, the story needs to end pretty quickly after that. Now you might ask, what if you're going to write a series? Which I did. This is super fun to do as a writer and really annoying if you're the reader, because what you're going to do is resolve some questions but raise new ones. So you're going to start bringing up the theme of your next book at the end of your first book. Okay, so those are the 5 really essential elements to a good story. And if you're brainstorming around those elements, you're going to find that it's a lot easier to know where you need to take your story. Okay, now we're finally at the outlining stage, which is super fun as well. My favorite way to outline is just 3 simple steps. The first thing I do is puzzle it out. For me, that means that I take sticky notes and I write everything in my notebook on each individual sticky note and make it its own scene or moment, whatever you want to call it. You can use index cards or you can use just pieces of paper, but you're basically rearranging it, each scene, and puzzling it out to figure out the order that you think is best for your story. The second step I do is put it on a poster board. I like to go to Walmart and get these big white foam poster boards for $1. Since I use sticky notes, I actually put these 2 steps together and I will stick them onto the poster board and then move them as needed until it feels right for me. Because that way if I have to stop in the middle, I know it's not going to get messed up, versus if I'm putting index cards out on the floor and then somebody walks through it, not so great. And my third step is to make a Microsoft Word document of my outline. I like to have it physically in front of me and actually physically work it out before I go to this step. I find that when I begin typing it into a Word document and going in order, scene by scene, I'll come up with even more ideas that I didn't consider during brainstorming, and I will add those at that moment. So part of the reason to put it into Microsoft Word is to flesh out your ideas even more, add more detail, more information, as much as you can think of. But it's also just to cement the outline in your brain, because it really helps to keep in mind where you're going as you write your story. Okay, so that's everything that I have on outlining. That's legit all I do, brainstorm and organize. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel because I will have more writing videos in the future. My plan is currently to post on Thursdays, so keep an eye out for a new video on writing once a week. Okay, last but not least, I finally have a physical copy of my book, this beautiful thing. This is Evelyn's Number. It's an amazing story. I will post a picture so you can read the back blurb as well, right here. This gorgeous thing is going to be available on December 5th of this year, 2017, on Amazon, and I will leave all the links for where to buy it below as soon as it's released. Thank you guys for watching. You're wonderful. I really love hanging out with you and enjoy coming up with new ideas. If you have something that you want me to talk about, leave a comment below. Thanks, guys. Talk to you later. Bye.